Hey guys, welcome back to How to Roll Dice. I'm Josh, and for today's video, I wanted to start with one of my GenCon 2022 hauls. Now, normally I would do all of the stuff that I had purchased in sort of one quick video running through all of it, but I actually purchased so much at this GenCon that I can't do that. I actually can't even physically fit it all on this side of the camera, like so that it would all be in frame, and that's even if I had no room to work. If I was just smushed here in the middle with stacks of stuff next to me, games and accessories and expansions, I still wouldn't be able to fit all of it. So I'm going to break these videos down into sort of different buckets, and this is going to be the RPG video because I picked up some really great RPGs. There's a few that I was looking for that I found copies of. There's a few that I had never seen before that I came across and thought, wow, I need to buy that. You guys have heard me sort of like rave in the past about how I'm tired with D20, like 5th edition D&D type systems or systems that are baked off of or built off of D&D. There's so many unique original systems out there and so many different ways to role play that there is no reason to stick to a D&D based system. I'm tired of it. So this is going to be a whole slew of games, other than a small selection that are for my son, a whole slew of games that sort of like branch away from D&D and do their own thing. And in all of these cases so far, I've been much more interested and intrigued by them than I have been with D&D in like 20 years. So moving into my first purchase, which is also definitely one of my favorites of anything that I've sort of come across so far, or that I've looked into so far from the ones that I've purchased that I've gotten to play or that I've read a bunch about. I'm babbling here. And this is Viking Death Squad. This is a very small, you can see, very thin book here. It's about 120 pages, nice hardcover, awesome cover there. Viking Death Squad with the metallic green reflective sort of like gold foil there, except it's not gold, it's green. I don't know if you'll be able to get a focus on this, but on the side there, whoop, Viking Death Squad. It's got these two nice little ribbons for page markers. This was, unfortunately, $55. It's printed in, I want to say, Lithuania. It is created by Runehammer Publishing, and that is actually a single individual, a single gentleman who creates a small slew of RPGs, and it's published here in the US or possibly worldwide by Modiphius Publishing. I've already read this entire book twice. This is one of the most intriguing and interesting and exciting systems and settings I've come across in quite a while. It's a pretty basic D6 system with a lot of really interesting mechanics on how you can push dice and change dice. It's got some really interesting mechanics around HP, sort of in the sense that there is none. Basically, the idea is that in this like dark dystopian, super sci-fi future, this very heavy metal future, I'll talk about the actual like creation of the game in a minute and how it's very heavy metal. There's no such thing as surviving an attack if you're not wearing armor. So like basically your HP is your armor. You can wear up to 4 pieces of armor at a time. Each piece of armor always has 3 hit points. As you take damage, your armor gets whittled down. If you ever take a hit and are not wearing any armor, you're just dead. Like, weapons and violence in this future is just too much for any living creature to survive. So your life points, your hit points is your armor. Beyond that, there's a bunch of other really cool mechanics that are built into it that are super unique that I haven't come across in any other game, or at least I haven't come across them in this flavor. When I mentioned that the creation of the game was very like heavy metal, the creator of the game literally says in the book, I got the idea for this book, sort of its origins, from the song War Pigs, or War Pig, I can't remember if it's pluralized, by Black Sabbath. He was listening to the song, he loves the song, he wrote the lyrics down, he read the lyrics, and he thought to himself, those are interesting. You could almost kind of create a setting around those lyrics. And so he did, and then he created this entire game to go with it. And you might think that that's kind of like a silly way to kick off a concept for an RPG. Maybe it is, but it worked for him. He did a spectacular job. This is a really cool setting. It takes place on Earth, spelled URTH, in the year 10,191. Basically, there's been this rise of this evil empire called the Infinitum, and they are mostly space dwelling, with like sending their cyborgs down to Earth to hunt out and wipe out humanity, which are living in small survivor colonies like scattered around the planet. At the same time, hell, like literal hell, has decided this is a good time to, rise up to the surface and see if we can finish things off, led by Lucifer, of course, as well as many of his sort of like demigod demon dudes. And so you've got hell coming up from below, and you've got the infinitum coming down from space, attacking with cyborgs and horrible cybernetic monstrosities. Large chunks of the planet have been drastically altered. The moon has been blown into shards. There are giant sort of like fungus forests sweeping across all of Eurasia, and inside of those forests you've got like gigantic anthropods and other horrible monstrosities that have have evolved from the various toxic waste releases all over the planet that have sort of like developed these massive mile-high mushroom forests. So really, really interesting stuff going on there. Your two playable races are humans, of course, who are the more sort of like nimble, interactive. They can use a little bit of tech, but tech's not really a thing in this setting. Everything is just really like cold iron and metal and rock, and like there's no fancy gadgetry, there's no electronics, there's no nimble small moving components, none of that. None of that survived. It's all just like aggressive, clunky, chunky hardware and gear. And it even goes as far as to say, like, electricity doesn't exist, batteries don't exist, fuel cells don't exist. We don't understand how this technology works. Humans have forgotten how all of this stuff functions. It's just, how does the giant metal bolter gun shoot hot rods of bolt metal? We don't know. You squeeze the trigger, it shoots them. You never have to reload. There doesn't seem to be any kind of gear or anything. It doesn't have a fuel source. It just works. And we don't ask how it works. We just use it to survive. And that's basically how everything goes. Like, there are vehicles that are just, 100,000 tons of iron that levitate and float across the surface as transports. And you just don't ask how. No one knows how. They just work. You get in it and you go. So it's got a little bit of like almost like a 40K vibe to it there, where the Space Marines have kind of forgotten how their technology functions. They think it's just like a magical religion and that's why things work. Or almost like how orcs believe that things work and so they do, but not quite that fantastical. And then the other cool thing is, other than humans, you can play as immortals. Immortals are actually Vikings, like legit Vikings, that the Infinitum somehow extracted either from going back in time or something, or has been in the background this whole time, almost like the Illuminati, and they've been extracting the bodies of epic Vikings and storing them in cryostasis and cybernetically augmenting them to fight against humanity. But the Vikings became aware, the Immortals became aware of what the Infinitum was, turned on them, and joined the humans. There aren't many of them left, but you can play as one. So your two races are humans or Immortals, and then you have awesome classes to choose from, crazy gear. And the whole concept of the game is basically just, like I said, it's supposed to be very metal. Like, if something that you do is like, would make you want to like throw up metal horns, like, or like quote lyrics from a song, there's actually a rule that if you roll 3 6s in a single roll, no fewer, no more, 3 6s exactly, you get to add demonic flair to whatever it is you're doing, whatever that means. And it actually recommends that you may or may not want to quote The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. It's just a very like rock and roll metal kind of game, and it's like I said, I've read the whole book twice and I love it, and I'm super excited to play it. I cannot wait to play it. Up next, because I want to get through these because I'm not going to talk much about them, I just think they're awesome. These are books by, I want to make sure I get the company right. These are books by 10 Speed Press, and they are official Wizards publishing, so like they've licensed by Wizards of the Coast. And these are basically the 5 books you would need to run or to fully understand D&D, but from the perspective of 8 to 12-year-olds, like for kids to understand, written front to back, not just like a copy paste with some word swaps, literally rewritten front to back for kids to be able to comprehend. So you've got Dungeons and Tombs. These are all called A Young Adventurer's Guide. Dungeons and Tombs, that sort of teaches you about how different dungeons and tombs could be constructed, how to describe them, what they look like, the things that you would find, the environment, all in terms that kids could understand. You've got Wizards and Spells. This is wizards and magic casting. So the difference between a wizard and a sorcerer and a warlock, and where their magic comes from and how it works. You've got Monsters and Creatures. This is basically a bestiary, except instead of breaking monsters down alphabetically or by some other process that kids wouldn't really understand, this breaks creatures down by where they come from. So here are some sky creatures, here are some underground creatures, here are some creatures you might find in a city, here are some creatures you might find in the ocean. Breaks them all down like that. And the way that they discuss the creatures is perfect for kids. So like, to give you an example, I'll just flip open to a page here and see what we get. A treant, right? So giant tree folk, right? Everybody knows those. Okay, so first off, when talking about the size of a treant, it doesn't just give you a random size in feet or inches or meters or anything like that. It compares them to things that kids would understand. So in this case, obviously trees. But for example, when they're talking about hill giants, they say if you were on the second floor of your bedroom, in your house, and you looked out the window, you could be looking into the eyes of a hill giant. Or if there was a goblin in your kitchen, he would be about the height of your kitchen table. So they use references that that kids can understand. And then they have great little sections in here that say like lair, where would you find them? What kind of environment would they be living in? Do this, don't do this. So how to behave around a treant. What do they like? What don't they like? Both for the GM running the game or the kid running the game and the players who are interacting with this thing that they've probably never heard of before or seen before. So it's all written from a perspective that kids can understand with like a little more attention paid to accessible language for kids. Then this is a different take on sort of like a bestiary. This is beasts and behemoths. This is monsters by size. So instead of alphabetically or again by some system that kids really wouldn't be able to utilize, this is by size, going from small all the way up to gigantic. So just to quickly reference where they start and where they end. So it opens up with, let's see, tiny and small. So it opens up with cranium rats, right? I didn't even know that was a thing, but that's pretty cool. Cranium rats. And I'm guessing it goes all the way to something like absolutely world ending. Yeah, a Tarrasque. Right? So literally considered an apocalyptic event, a Tarrasque. And it scales them up in size and it breaks them down by different sizes. So kids can like sort of reference how these things stand out in a world against each other. And then lastly, we've got warriors and weapons. And this has got all of the different sort of like traditional races that you would play as in D&D and all the different inventory. And again, amazing illustrations to go with everything because kids aren't going to understand the difference between like a falchion and a scythe. And, you know, they've heard these names before, maybe. A lot of kids nowadays play more video games and stuff, so maybe they would understand some of these. But to get a nice visual on these to really grasp what it is you're talking about and how they look different, how they function differently, this is amazing. Just as an example, this is the fantasy races page. You can see there, nice little like sort of profile headshot of all of the different races. Didn't mean to bump that. Nice mix of like male and female in here. You get a like on the glance reference. And they didn't just do human, dwarf, elf, half orc. They went into some of the more complex ones. Kenku is in here, Tabaxi, a turtle. Like I know people that play D&D that wouldn't know what a Kenku is, you know, or they wouldn't know the difference between like a Kenku and Aarakocra or whatever it's called. So very, very cool. Very awesome stuff. Lots of pictures. I mean, I bought these for my son. He is 3 and we've already gone through 2 of them just looking at pictures and he would, what's this? What's a white dragon? What's a blue dragon? What's a frost giant? Like, and I literally went through and I have to change some words here and there because he knows like what dead or killed is or like what destroyed means, but I like on the fly translate them so they make a little more sense to him so he can sort of like grasp it and we can keep moving. And some of the larger words I alter, but if a 3-year-old can for the most part absorb this, an 8 to 12-year-old is going to go nuts with this. I would have killed to have this as a kid and not have to read complex. Like I started when 3rd edition was out and I was maybe 13 or 14. I can't quite recall, but there was definitely like concepts and descriptions in that with words like I didn't know what that word meant or I couldn't quite follow what they were saying. These would have been amazing. So this is awesome. By the way, all of these completely autographed to my son by, let me find the front page there, by the writers of the book. So right there. It was a gentleman and a woman. I don't know if they were like husband and wife or something, but obviously partners in creating the book. And they say to Andrew, join the fight. Or at least this one says join the fight. I don't know what the other one said. I actually didn't read them. I was just more interested in getting them for my son and saying, look, these people signed them for you. This one says to Andrew, watch for danger. So amazing people doing amazing things. Awesome meeting them. I don't have it with me, but they also gave us like a 24x18 printout of the world where all of this takes place. I didn't really take a close look at it. Maybe it's a traditional D&D setting. But it's got labels and everything's a bit chunkier, so you don't have to like really zoom in and understand what you're looking at. It's just big labels and names and icons on the map. Really, really awesome stuff. So got that for my son. Super happy with all of that. Next, we've got by Renegade Game Studios, a game I've actually been looking at for a while, and then somehow my wife pulled the trigger on it. Alice is Missing. If you've never come across this before, like I said, Renegade Game Studios looks like a box, but inside here you've got a deck of cards, some small rule books. This is an interesting concept on how you could play an RPG. This is an RPG where nobody talks, nobody communicates at the gaming table except through text messages on your phone. And the idea is that a person, a young person, a teenager or something has gone missing in this small town, and all of you are texting information back and forth, trying to figure out what's going on, where the person is, what happened to them. I haven't read too much into how exactly the game operates, but just, I mean, if I just explain that to you from the get-go, it says right on the back, in silence we find truth, and it explains this is a silent role-playing game about the disappearance of Alice Briarwood, a high school junior from a small town of Silent Falls. It's an RPG where you don't talk. where you use your phone to text, and that's the only way you can communicate information with people around the table. And I'm sure there's variations on rules and when you can text who and what you can share and yada yada. That's awesome. That's such a cool concept. Screw D&D. D&D, I'm done with you. Those books for my son, awesome. Gets him into the role of things, and then we'll just shift away from that very quickly. Next up, I bought this just absolute titan. I want you to know how heavy this is. So it's going to make a loud noise. I apologize. If you have headphones, maybe take them off just for a brief second. But like, this is a giant book. I usually don't buy RPGs that are this large unless I'm certain I like them. But I mean, this is Flames of Freedom. So take a look at this, right? I'm an American buff. I don't know if you know that. Big fan of America. So I saw this and I saw one other game called Cannons and Nations. They both looked great. They both had great pitches. I talked to both of the creators of the games as well as the guys that were working the booths. But when Cannons and Nations, the gentleman giving me the pitch, said this is a 5th edition module or a 5th edition based game, I went, no, thank you. And I walked right back over to this table and I went, well, that actually just made my decision very easy for me because I wanted to pick up an American themed Revolutionary era RPG. And there were those two. And one of them is based off of 5th edition. So that one just comes right off the table. And then I got to pop right over to Flames of Freedom and pick this up. Again, autographed by the creator, who I met, who's very nice. Josh, let drums beat and horns sound. Very, very cool people at GenCon. GenCon is such a cool time to just like go for it. Just like try to meet creators, try to talk to people about stuff. So I want to, let me see if the description that I read, the description on their website is amazing. I don't know if it's what it says here, but basically this is a occult-backed alternate history Revolutionary War setting where you can play as indigenous Native Americans, you can play as revolutionary soldiers, you can play as freed slaves, you can play as all kinds of things. A lot of it revolves around Boston. Let's see if I can find this here. A tangled web of conspiracy spans North America. In the war for survival, it does not matter your creed, color, culture, or gender. All stand together. But as the revolution has begun, something far more mysterious stirs. Agents of an occult entreat both the Continental Army and Redcoats. Freemasons conspire in the city of brotherly love. Maryland is in the throes of a witch hunt by the Knights Templar. Reports of witches have been seen in the Great Dismal Swamp. Indigenous Sachem, I can't read that, say the devils walk among the living. Flesh-gobbling ghouls have been tunneling beneath Boston. The Pine Barrens of New Jersey are haunted by what the locals call Leeds Devil. Just awesome stuff. A lot of it based off of actual American folklore, and then some of it sort of like pulled in from other cultures, but super excited to give this a try. Also picked up the screen for that because larger games, I feel like a screen really helps. I'm actually going to make a screen for Viking Death Squad. I don't think Alice is Missing needs a screen at all. But this is the sort of the art side of the screen. You can see the end there, but very, very nice. And then the inside, like I said, I don't know when I'm going to get around to reading this because that is a chunky book. And looking at this, it looks like a very busy rule set, but very, very nice and very excited to give that a try. The only downside to that game, and I really hate to judge a game like this on such a silly thing, but the art in this is not my style. The art in this is kind of like a pencil sketch, almost like something you would find in almost like a Lovecraft style story, where it's just this very soft, low resolution pencil art with like rough shading and things like that. I like a really nice art in my RPG books. I hope it gets my mind going, but I already know there are so many places online where I can find this style, this sort of concept of art in a style that I prefer, that I can use for characters, that I can use for little illustrations and stuff like that to get the juices flowing. But if they had gone with something like the art on the cover, which is amazing, inside of the book, I would have been much happier with that. But regardless, very happy, very excited to give that a try. Then lastly, I have this here. Now I was really torn on this and I was basically pushed into it by Bryant and my wife, Stephanie. This is another copy of Big Eye Smallmouth 4th edition. One of the things I was sure I wanted to do was make it to the Dice Kami booth and meet the creator of the game, the author and creator of the game and all of the Big Eye Smallmouth games. And I did, and he was awesome, and it was super nice meeting him. And I wanted him to autograph my copy, but I had forgotten my copy at home. I like half forgot it, half wasn't sure if I wanted to bring it because I didn't want to get damaged on the trip, even though we drove. While we were there, and I was saying to him, like, maybe I'll pick up a copy of like Big Eye Smallmouth 4th edition Naked, which is like the stripped down version of the rules, and I'll have you sign that. And he goes, and one of the guys working his booth was like, well, you know, we have limited edition, numbered, collector's edition hard copies of the book with like a padded cover. Those are already autographed, and if you buy that, it comes bundled with a bunch of additional sort of like components and items for the game. And it was $100. I had already bought the exact same book, but not the like high-end limited edition, just the regular hardcover. I had already bought that book, and it was something like $60 or $70. So now we're looking at spending $100 on a thing I already own, but I was talked into it, and I am kind of happy that I decided to get it because I didn't realize how nice it was. So this is the book here. I've already showed it to you guys. You've seen this, right? I held this up in another video. Nothing different about the cover, the back, anything like that. I wish I could have you feel this, but because I keep bumping the microphone. I'm terribly sorry. I wish I could have you feel this because it's like somebody printed the book out of a pillow. It's got like a literally quilted, padded case to it. It's very interesting. All of the pages are silver foiled. I don't know if you can see that there, but all the pages are silver. It has, if you take the dust cover off, it has this thick, padded purple cover, again with the silver lettering for Big Eye Smallmouth. I'm trying to be very gentle with this because it is a collector's edition. I don't know if I'm going to play with this and give away my other copy, or if I'm going to play with the other copy and keep this one on a shelf somewhere or something like that. I feel like that's not a cool thing to do. You should play with your games, but who knows? On the inside it says, this deluxe limited edition of Big Eye Smallmouth role-playing game is restricted to only 1,000 individual signed and numbered copies. And as somebody with like a small stint of self-induced OCD, the fact that this is book number 750 even out of 1,000 just makes me so happy. I didn't know that until I got back to my room and opened it. I just knew it was numbered and signed. And when I saw that it was 750, it just added I would have paid an extra $20 to have a number as nice and round as 750. But other than that, it's the exact same book. I already have it. I've already gone through it, shown it to you guys. There's nothing different about it. It's just much nicer and one of 1,000 and signed. And I got to meet the creator, and it's very nice. I also got, like I said, this bundle of sort of extras because it came with the book. I've gone through these. There's nothing amazing in here, but there's some cool stuff. Oh, I don't have them in front of me. Actually, I can grab them. Hold on just a minute, everyone. It also came with, don't mind that. Those were things from the next video falling on the ground. I can pick those up. I got these Big Eye Smallmouth dice that go with the game. This box is kind of hilarious because when you look at this, you look at the size of the box and you look at the dice that are inside of it, you go, oh, that's 4 rows of dice, right? I see 2, there are 2 more inside that box based on the size. Not that I even cared about the dice. Like, you can play the game with regular D6. These are just dice that are themed in game colors and designs for fun. But this is what's actually inside of that box. Hopefully you can see that. That is 2 rows of dice and a big section of plastic that is hidden behind the packaging of the box so that you can't tell that you're really only getting 2 rows of dice. Now, I got these for free with the game. I wasn't spending $100 for the extras. I was spending $100 for the book. The fact that it came with extras had no impact on whether or not I was going to buy it. But if I was in a store and I bought this pack of dice and opened it up and that's how it came, boy, would I have gone right back to the store and gotten my money back. It says right on the top, 2 colors of dice, 2 rows, 2 colors of dice. But still, that's in small print only on the top of the box. Nobody looks at the top of the box. They're gonna look at this side of the box. Don't do that. That's like mean. Don't do that. Awesome book though. And then the other stuff that's in this little sleeve here, we've got some little bookmarks. Fun. We've got some nice padded thick stickers. Cool stuff there. We've got this lovely, these are new. These only popped up a few years ago. I had never seen these before. Now they're at every convention. It's a neoprene mat. Hold this up the right way so you guys can see it nicely. It's a neoprene mat with plastic snaps in the corners. So when you snap the corners together, actually I should show you in case you've never seen one of these. When you snap the corners together, it creates a dice tray, a little tray that you can roll your dice in or put tokens in or whatever you want to do. I've seen dice trays and stuff out of obviously wood and other materials, but to make them out of neoprene with these little snaps seems to be a very popular trend that's arisen in the last like 2 or 3 years in the gaming community. So you snap the corners together and what you end up with is this kind of like small bowl kind of neoprene tray that you can roll dice in or, you know, put chips and salsa in, whatever you want to do. We've got a very large poster. I'm not going to bother opening it because it is big. The artwork is fine. There's nicer artwork in the book. I wish they would have printed one of those, but this is cool. Nice. It's a big poster. It's like a 36 by 24, maybe even a 48 by 36. It's a big poster. We've got this right here, which is the primer. This might be nice because it is a relatively big book. This primer is supposed to basically walk you into the game so that you can get started. Gives you some starting characters, I believe, breaks down some of the more complex rules and some of the rules that you need to just get going and leaves the minutia in the larger book. And then this right here, the copy that I bought did come with, or sorry, the screen that I bought did come with a similar sheet to this that had basically some cheat sheet sections on it. Maybe that you can hand out to other players because you'd have the screen. But this has some additional stuff on it, attack roll modifiers and defense roll modifiers that weren't on that other sort of cheat sheet that I got. So more useful information for when running the game. And that all came with the limited edition, deluxe limited edition that I got. So that's all the RPGs that I picked up. This video was longer than I thought it was going to be, and I apologize. I don't know how I'm going to get through the board game one because I got to be honest with you guys, there's something like 20, 25 board games. We really spent like $2K shopping, and none of it really was frivolous. I got an American flag kilt to go with my existing plaid kilts from Got Kilts, wonderful company. That was like $120, and then a couple other small things, but like 95% of the $2,000 that we spent shopping is strictly on games. So the board game video is going to be massive. But anyways, these are RPGs that I picked up. I don't have it with me because I've already mailed it to New York, but I did buy a copy of 1,000-Year-Old Vampire for my sister. You can get it online for free, I believe, but there's a really nice hard copy that you can get through Indie Press Publications or Indie Publication Press, something like that. They print indie RPGs. They have some really cool, really fun stuff. And they had a copy, they had a whole stack of copies of 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's a really cool solo RPG with like a losing your memory, losing your mind kind of theme. It's almost like a journaling style RPG. And it's a solo game. So I got a copy of that for my sister. That's getting mailed to her. I don't have that with me, but technically that's an RPG. But yeah, this is what I got for RPGs. Viking Death Squad, so clearly at the top of the stack. Big Eye Smallmouth, limited deluxe. It was kind of just nice to have, and I'm glad I got it. Flames of Freedom, haven't even dove into yet, but very excited to have that style of an RPG. I've been wanting to get one for a while. Alice is Missing, really interesting take on how you could possibly play an RPG, different ways you could play an RPG using entirely your phone and no talking. And then those books for my son, I've actually been looking for those for a long time. I saw them one time at Barnes & Noble's and then they disappeared. You could buy them off Amazon, but you know I hate ordering stuff online and rather find it in person. And getting to meet the creators and having them sign every single inside cover and write a custom note to my son is just awesome. So GenCon, good stuff. RPGs scored. I will see you guys real soon with the next video. I'm probably going to go into expansions next before I go into full board games. So we'll do board game expansions and then we'll do full board games, and that we're kind of going to scale up in size. Expansions is probably going to be like 20-30 minutes, and then board games is going to be like an hour. We'll see. But anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. I'll see you real soon. Have a good one.